You guys ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. I hereby call the 2,287th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item this evening will be the Friends of the Leading Library, and it's a donation presentation. So we're going to have Katie Newell, Gina Sirocco, sorry.
Yeah.
Please.
I just asked her how to say it myself. I always call her Gina. So.
And that's good enough.
Hi, I'm Katie Newell, the library director, and this is Gina Sirocco, the president of the Friends of the Library. And I just wanted to, before we do the check thing, I just want to thank the Friends publicly for all they have done. I've been here 7 years now, and they have given us money every year to do programs, to get materials that we normally would not be able to buy with our budget. And they have allowed us to go outside our budget and do things that have been great for the community. It's been great for the library. And so I just really want to thank them for their continuing support. We have a couple of things coming up. Annual events. We're going to be doing the plant sale is going to be done out at the Milwaukee Floral. We're going to have our annual book sale. And so all those things, they've been selling books inside the library now over at the pod, and they've been doing quite well. They, all of their revenue stream last month was over $600, and that all goes to the library. So anyway, we have a really big check that the Friends, all of the money they have been raising, they've gotten some bequests, and they have been huge supporters of our library. So,
Hey, speak.
whoa!
Wow.
On behalf of the many Friends of Leading Library who have worked very hard organizing book sales and plant sale and creating new websites and recruiting new volunteers, I want to say thank you and just we're so happy that we were able to contribute to the construction of the library.
Ah, that's awesome.
That's great.
You should take this check.
Get it out here so we can get a picture.
Take this away.
Gina takes out the mayor.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to put that back up at the library so everybody sees this.
Hey, before you go, can you give us a little bit about how people can donate books and donate plants for the two sales? Since
Can you do it into the microphone?
into the microphone,
Up
yeah.
here.
Because I have some of both. I'm ready to donate. I've been carrying the books around in my car for a while now, actually.
Well,
We have flyers with a few names and phone numbers where you can call, or you can, and people will come and pick them up, or you can bring them to Harvey Street. Do you know 40th and Harvey? We have the book where we keep the books on Mondays from 9 to, what time, Carol? About 11? 11. Between 9 and 11. If that time isn't convenient, then we can get you a phone number to call.
Okay. And the plants?
The plants.
Can we take them to Milwaukee Floral, or are they not ready for that yet?
I think they are.
Okay.
They're beginning to do their, digging donations and taking them over there and doing some potting on Saturdays, I think. Thursdays and Saturdays.
It'd be great if you guys would post some of that to Facebook, and so we could share it.
We have a website.
Okay.
You can go to Letting Friends.
Okay.
Oh, Elisa, help me. Letting, no?
Website's not up yet, but
The lettingfriends.plant sale is, though, isn't it?
We'll get it for the next meeting. We'll read it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Very much. All right, our next item is Women's History Month, the Proclamation. This will be presented by Greg Hemer and Michelle Hemer and Haley McCoy.
Oh, no.
Scott, you picked up the wrong pile.
I'm not you. Not me. Are you ready? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and city manager. My name is Michelle Hemer, Secretary of the Milwaukee Historical Society, and I am joined by Haley McCoy, one of our new board members. We are proud to be the sponsor of Women's History Month Proclamation. We would like to congratulate our first sitting all-woman city council, but the second elected. In 2014, City Council would have been all-female, but Representative Power decided to resign to take her new role as District 41 representative. Most of you know the Milwaukee Museum, located at 3737 Southeast Adams Street, is open Saturdays 1 to 5 p.m., but you may not know its women's history. The older generation would tell you that the first Milwaukee Museum was at Nell Martin's house. The museum was created by Krista McDonald, then cared for by Madeline Bowl, then nurtured by the Briggs sisters. Today, the Milwaukee Historical Society has a board majority of females. Enid Briggs, Linda Carr, Ari Van Bergen, Haley McCoy, and myself are proud to continue the female tradition and influence. Our newest exhibit, Milwaukee Kids Growing Up in the Good Old Days, features young women and men showing what life was like before the digital age. To help proclaim March as Women's History Month, we thought we would briefly talk about 4 people that made Milwaukee what it is today, not only by holding power, but by providing care, nurture, and vision. All 4 of them happen to be women.
Okay, so Annie Ross Roberts. When 2 young parents, Edmund and Elizabeth Ross, came across the plains from Illinois to Milwaukee in 1865, there was a housing shortage. The Rosses, along with 3 young daughters, could only find quarters in the housekeeping rooms at the California Hotel on Main Street. This is where Annie Ross was born on April 5th, 1866. During their first rainy season in Oregon, the basement at the Hotel California flooded. So they moved to the Hotel Oregon on what is now McLaughlin and Monroe Street. It was there that Annie Ross spent the first 2 years of her life before moving to the post office on Lake Road. In fact, before the Ross family could purchase the property, they had to promise to be postmaster, and her parents did so for the next 14 years. Annie grew up in Milwaukee, remembering going to school on what is now the City Hall grounds. She recalls how Mr. Lambert, a pioneer orchardist in Milwaukee, sought out young teachers to come to Milwaukee. She remembers they had excellent instruction and were fortunate enough to have work mapped out into her high school courses. Her experience at that one-room schoolhouse, plus with limited job opportunities for young women at the time, prompted her to become a teacher. She taught in Milwaukee, Portland, and Dayton, Washington. In 1902, Annie married Thomas Roberts, who, along with his brother, owned one of the largest department stores, the aptly named Roberts Brothers. They bought a home on Lake Road with acreage gently sloping to Kellogg Lake. They named their home Towel Bryn, Welsh for Peaceful Hill, which was fitting for the friendly, peaceful environment. Annie Ross Roberts was well known throughout the community of Milwaukee. As the oldest pioneer in Milwaukee, she sat atop the Milwaukee Founders Centennial Parade in 1950, waving to the crowd and merchants, all of whom knew her by name. She recalled Milwaukee in those early days, saying, "For many years, the town led a dormant existence. People were poor and had to work hard on their land to make a living for their families. Amusements were of their own making. There were no new buildings erected to speak of. And at the time, there were only two churches, St. John's Episcopal and a Catholic. People living here were just home folks, good citizens, good neighbors, and good friends." Today, you may recognize the name Annie Ross. Northwest Family Alternatives operates the Annie Ross House, which has provided emergency shelter for families for over 25 years. Next is Ellen Nell Martin. The woman who would become known as the First Lady of Milwaukee was born on September 9th, 1891 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The third child of Counselor Owens and Mrs. Margaret Roberts, she was only 2 years old when the family moved to Milwaukee. They settled in the Minthorn area near the present-day intersection of Harrison Street and 42nd Avenue. In 1940, Nell was on the ballot as a candidate for the office of town recorder. She won her election that year and would serve at City Hall for most of the next 18 years. As recorder, Nell was in charge of setting up elections and running voting booths, and prior to 1944, performing many duties now assigned to the municipal court judge and city manager. As judge during World War II, Nell gained a deep insight into the human emotions of a nation at war and offered much valuable counsel and understanding to the city's troubled youth. She was always willing to lend a hand to those who came to the City Hall looking for assistance. Nell's re-election in 1944 was the last time Milwaukee elected a recorder, as major changes to the city charter that year made the position an appointed one. Nell has the distinction of being the last elected and first appointed recorder. In addition to serving at Milwaukee City Hall, Nell was very involved in the community as a member of the Milwaukee Historical Society, Milwaukee Friends of the Library, Milwaukee Community Club, Milwaukee Business Women's Club, Milwaukee Covenant Church, and a board member of the Milwaukee Pioneer Cemetery. She was a past royal matron of the Amaranth Clackamas Court 10, a member of Eastern Star Daphne Chapter Number 13, a member of the Oregon Historical Society, as well as the Daughters of the American Legion. She was active in planning and organizing the centennial celebrations for Milwaukee in 1950. On March 6th, Nell had an attack of influenza. Less than a week later, she passed away. Nell's sudden death at the age of 74 moved the city of Milwaukee to tears. In the 26 years she served Milwaukee, she had become a living legend, the authority on all things Milwaukee, past and present. Known to some as the Grand Lady of Milwaukee administration, she had made it her business to know the city and its people, and was always willing to share her memories of the city she loved so much. After her passing, her collections of photos and other Milwaukee documents were donated to the Milwaukee Historical Society. Nell Martin was never one to sit idle. She was a great conversationalist and was often heard saying, "I have no spare time. I just kept busy." A mantra likely fueled by her belief that things were bound to get better, another one of her quips. She was remembered by Mayor Bill Hupp as a feisty redhead who refused to record city council meetings she didn't approve of, which, according to Mayor Hupp, caused the council to record their own meetings. After a lifetime witnessing the development of our community, Nell certainly had her opinions on the issues facing the city. But ever the optimist, a daughter and sister of civil leaders, a clerk and a recorder of the council, a keeper of Milwaukee history, a legend, Nell Martin shall always be. Good, bad, or otherwise, she loved Milwaukee, and she believed it had a better tomorrow built on its solid pioneer past.
Don't get any ideas, Scott.
Florence Olson Ledding. Born in 1870 to Andrew and Sophronia Olson, the family traveled westward to Oregon in 1875. Andrew Olson passed, and Sophronia married Seth Llewellyn, bringing her and Florence here to Milwaukee. She grew up here, attending school and the orchards. Miss Florence Ledding was a pioneer on many fronts. In 1901, she became the first woman employee at Allen & Lewis, the largest wholesale grocer in Portland, as a stenographer. She then attended the University of Oregon Law School and was the second woman in the state to be admitted to the Oregon Bar Association. She was then appointed U.S. District Court bankruptcy referee, the first woman to ever hold that position. She then married Herman Ledding, and they purchased what was the Scott Estate home, located at 2105 Southeast Harrison Street, where the library is currently being built. Her and Herman's dedication of educating the youth and the written word is one of the strongholds in our city. In 1961, Miss Florence Ledding donated her property, $5,000, and her 3,200 book collection to the city of Milwaukee for the sole purpose of a library. This donation shall never be used in whole or in part for any other purpose. Krista McDonald. At the Milwaukee Museum near the front door hangs a plaque. It reads, Krista McDonald, a true friend. She was more than just a friend to Milwaukee. She was our historian. After fleeing Germany after World War II, she came to live in Milwaukee with her American husband, Bill, in 1949. As her husband was going to school, she worked in a small bake shop on Main Street. This is where she started to pick up bits and pieces of Milwaukee history. She was intrigued by the pioneers. An Oregonian article by Lorene Carlson quotes Miss McDonald as saying, "What they set out to do, they did. This is what is completely missing in Europe because all patterns were set." Krista McDonald joined the Milwaukee Historical Society in the early 1960s. Her dedication to preserving Milwaukee history culminated with Milwaukee Museum. In 1973, the Milwaukee Historical Society had the opportunity to move a farmhouse to city-owned property. She and the society tackled the job. This is where the museum now sits today. It's opened in 1975, and Miss McDonald is responsible for most of the collection. It was the first opportunity for the Milwaukee Historical Society to house all of its artifacts under one roof. The museum strives today because of her efforts. 6 years after opening the museum, Miss McDonald informed City Council that it no longer needed funding from the city. She relentlessly gave tours, visited schools, and created traveling exhibits. She averaged 30 hours a week working for the museum. This was from 1975 through the early 90s. She was named Clackamas Review Woman of the Year in 1992 for her inspirational efforts of keeping Milwaukee history alive. Krista McDonald said it best about sharing historical information to the generations. It's important because all generations are different. The past should be recorded so the present can learn from it. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for creating a place we can all share.
All right.
That's your cue.
Well, thank you very much. Those were fascinating.
They were.
Whereas Milwaukee women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our city in countless ways. And whereas Milwaukee women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the city by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home. And whereas Milwaukee women have played a unique role throughout the history of the city by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the city, and whereas Milwaukee women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our city, and whereas Milwaukee women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and whereas Milwaukee women have courageously served our country and the national and state armed forces, and whereas Milwaukee women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movements, and especially the peace movement. And whereas despite these contributions, the role of women in Milwaukee, Oregon, and our nation's history and our national history has been overlooked and undervalued. Now, therefore, I, Mark Gamba, the Mayor of Milwaukee, Mayor of the City of Milwaukee, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas, in the State of Oregon, and with full support and sponsorship of the Milwaukee Historical Society, do hereby proclaim March 2019 to be Women's History Month in Milwaukee, and do recommend its observance with the appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May we get a photograph with the mayor and the councilor with our two presenters and two of our well-known history ladies in the audience, Carolyn Tomei and Nancy Barr, who is the granddaughter of Melmar.
All right.
Ann, would you like to get up there too?
Sure.
It is Women's History Month.
Am I history? Sorry, I was trying to.
Around the screen. You guys can get up there too. Okay. Crowd them all. Thing is, I forgot my phone, so we just rely on Scott to take the picture anyways.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you, Dad.
And will the museum be posting those graphics about the 4 women on, oh, sorry. Oh, man, sorry
The
about
museum is, force I have it, right, Lisa?
Yeah.
The museum is going to check our Facebook pages, our Facebook page. About once a week, we're going to have a story about a woman
one
of
the
Milwaukee's history.
Okay.
First one is going to be Miss Stencil, who I believe was the acrobat on top of airplane.
Oh,
People.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
There's a pilot, too. There was a woman.
I think she's one and the same.
Yeah.
Dorothy, yes.
Stencil.
Stencil.
Yeah.
The communications team is working on that. And also on March 12th at 6:30, we're going to have an extended version of the program that you saw here at our Historical Society meeting at 3:30. And we're also going to include one of our dearest friends to the parks and to transportation, which would be Joy Burgess, first female mayor of Milwaukee.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great job, you guys. Good God. It's longer than the proclamation. All right, tonight's consent agenda. Everybody take a nap. This is a lot. The minutes of the February 5th, 2019 work and regular sessions. A resolution making the following reappointments. A. Adams, Scott Cranmore, and Hamid Shabata Bennett to the Arts Committee. Max Stilson and to the Audit Committee. Laura Hanna and Edward Simmons to the Citizens Utility Advisory Board. Kyle Simica, Brett Larilla to the Design and Landmarks Committee. Carolyn Tomei, Michael Park, Brett McCon to the Kellogg Good Neighbor Committee. Carol Miller, Robin Chedester, Jessica Stetson, Jason Price to the Library Board. Ben Johnson, Gary Klein, Lisa Lashbrook, Martin McKnight to the Park and Recreation Board, Greg Heemer to the Planning Commission, and Rebecca Ives to the Tree Board. We also have a resolution appointing Laura Loosevelt to the Planning Commission. We have a resolution establishing a library fine amnesty week from April 7th through April 13th, 2019, in recognition of National Library Week. A resolution authorizing budget transfers, a resolution authorizing a professional services contract with Tetra Tech for $240,184 to develop a water system master plan. Oregon Liquor Control Commission applications for Decibel Sound and Drink at 11380 Southeast 21st Avenue for on-premises, and Parcel Portland at 5691 Southeast International Way, number H2 for off-premises. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No.
I would entertain a motion then.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously.
And some of us have been waiting for that fine amnesty. It's coming up. Yep.
All right. Audience participation. I don't have any cards. Is anybody interested in doing this?
Guess not.
Nope. So I will not read that whole thing. Since we're not going to do that, do we have anything to report from the previous? Nope.
We do not.
Okay. Zoning and comprehensive plan amendments, Railroad Avenue, file numbers ZA-2018-002, CPA-2018-002, an ordinance continued from February 19th, 2019. On February 19th, the council held a hearing and took public comment on the proposed amendments to the zoning code and comprehensive plan. After discussing the amendments, the council voted 4-1 to approve the ordinance making the proposed amendments. Per the city charter, ordinances that do not receive unanimous support are to be read and voted on at 2 separate meetings. Therefore, tonight, the ordinance will be read by title only for the second time, and the council will conduct a final roll call vote. Ms. Ober, would you please read the ordinance one time by title only?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon to amend the zoning map to rezone tax lots 12E3 1DD, lots 2900, 3000, 3100, and 12E31 DB 01300 from residential R7 to residential R5, and to amend the Milwaukee Comprehensive Plan land use map to designate tax lots 12E3 1DD, lots 2900, 3000, 3100, and 12E31 DB 01300 as moderate density rather than low density. File number ZA 2018-002 and CPA 2018-002.
All right. Scott, would you please poll the council?
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Heisey?
Yes.
Council President Faulkner?
Yes.
Councilor Beatty?
Yes.
Mayor Gamba?
Nay.
The motion is 4-1, carried. Ordinance 2169.
All right. The next item, consideration of code amendment round 3, green buildings and height variances in the downtown. Just to qualify that,
Sure.
I thought our green building extended beyond the downtown area, green building standard.
It does. It actually affects 3 different zones, so we'll make sure that we change that title when we move it to the correct date.
Okay.
But it is creating a new portion of code. In the past, we had it in 3 different locations, so it's centralizing it in that one location.
All right. So file number ZA-2018-004, an ordinance continued from December 18th, 2018. The public hearing on the proposed green building and building height variances related to code amendments, file number ZA-2018-004, continued from December 18th, 2018, is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is for the council to discuss and receive public comments on the proposed amendments to the city code. Does any member of council wish to announce any actual or potential conflicts of interest?
No.
Nor do I. Does any member of the audience wish to make any challenge to any council member's impartiality or ability to participate in this decision? Seeing none. Staff report, but
So we're actually going to be asking that we do a continuation of the hearing to allow staff to have a little more time to investigate an option that was provided by one of the council members. So we do have a staff report that is fully ready to go, but we are trying to make sure that we have responses to questions. So we are asking that we move this to a date certain of March 19th to that council meeting.
Would we close our public hearing first and then entertain that motion?
Justin?
I don't.
They just open the hearing. Do they need a motion to close it, or are they just motion to continue? Just motion to continue.
Pardon me?
Just the motion to continue.
So, can I go ahead?
Yeah.
I move to continue the hearing on the proposed green building and building height variance related code amendments to March 19th, 2019.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to continue the hearing of the proposed green building and building height variance related to code amendments to March 19th, 2019. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the hearing will be continued on a date certain of March 19th. Okay.
Denny's never moved so fast.
See you next time.
Council's on fire tonight. Thanks, y'all.
All right, next up is the 2018 Volunteer of the Year selection discussion. This will be introduced by our Community Programs Coordinator, Jason Wachs.
Good evening, everyone. If I start coughing, I apologize. I've been sick the last handful of days, so I'm going to try to get through this without coughing.
We'll just do a duet.
Okay, we'll see how that goes, but I think I can manage. So tonight I'm here to talk to you about the 2018 Volunteer of the Year Award nominations that you received prior to this meeting, and the staff report that explained kind of the process. So to start out with, I just wanted to go through a little bit of the background related to the 2018 Volunteer of the Year. I know some council members have been on council all that long, may not be familiar with how this works. So I just wanted to go through a little bit of history. So the Volunteer of the Year award began in 2012. The past winners are on the slide up there. Last year's winner was Lisa Gunyon-Rinker, pictured in the slide. We've also had Ed Zumwalt, Dion Shepard, Alicia Hamilton, thank you, David Ashenbrenner, and Joel Bergman as winners in the past. The nomination process this year started on January 2nd, and it concluded on February the 15th. 13 nominations were received, 7 individuals and 2 couples were nominated this year. 2 individuals were nominated more than once, and there's all the nominations listed up on the screen. I guess I can read them. It's Chris and Jeff Davis, Pam and Milo Denham, Linda Hedges, Greg Heemer, Lisa Lashbrook, Donna Blondo Montanez, I hope I got that right, Sarah Smith, Andrew Taylor, and Kim Travis. So the criteria that we use for choosing the Volunteer of the Year is longevity of service to the community, some contribution of service in the calendar year of 2018, service within the city limits of Milwaukee, and some contribution related to a city activity. Although it's not required, it is preferred, so something like activity on a board, commission, committee, or an NDA, or other committees that we put together throughout the year. Once the volunteer is chosen, they're thanked. This year we'll have our annual volunteer dinner on April 30th that actually invites all the board and commission members and the NDA leaders and all of our different committees that we've had set up on April 30th at the Milwaukee Center. And this year we are going to play bingo, so I think it's going to be a good time.
Oh boy.
With really good prizes. So
Good.
Trip to Hawaii and...
Well, I mean, if we can manage it, possibly. If anybody out there wants to donate a trip to Hawaii, let us know.
Did we also invite because last time around, we also had some nominees who didn't sort of fit that last criteria, and I wonder, the official city board committee, and I'm wondering, did we invite those nominees last year?
We have. I mean, we've invited, such as the Comp Plan Advisory Committee, the Library Board, Construction Committee, that sort of thing.
But do we invite all the nominees?
All the nominees. We did.
Okay.
Most years, I mean, a lot of the folks, 3/4 of them usually are invited because their involvement in other boards and commissions. But there are some, but we did.
We do, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and we can do that again this year as well.
Yeah.
And the other ways that will help thank them is a press release. They'll be featured in the May pilot on the front cover. There'll be social media posts, and then the plaque in the lobby of City Hall will have their name added to that plaque. That's Lisa Gunyon-Rinker at Bob's Red Mill last year with the mayor, who won, and that's the plaque that she received. And that's really all I have in terms of the background. I know in the past we've done a ballot, so Scott actually has the ballots this year, as we did last year.
Oh, wow. That's very official looking.
You can use, Scott has also volunteered to count the ballots once you've all voted, and announce the winner for me, just to keep it impartial, and Scott's really good at that. So.
Recorder.
That's right, that's right.
So do we have 2 rounds? Because there is the potential, of course, that we could end up with 1 vote.
I do have extra ones if we have to get to that point.
If we have a tie.
Well, we could end up with 5 with 1 vote.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Therefore, no winner.
This is true.
That's true.
We'll have to force a vote of some variety if we have to do that, so I did bring extras.
Okay, good.
So the process for me was just to distribute those, and City Council can talk about who you want to choose, and then pass them back to Scott, and then he'll announce.
Do you want us to just choose one person then?
Yes.
A person or a couple, but I mean one.
Nominee.
One nominee. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay,
I know.
First, second, and third deal.
Right.
I gotcha.
This year was the first time we ever had couples nominated, and there was actually 2, so it's kind of an unprecedented thing. But we talked it over and felt that it doesn't really affect how we thank the person. They'll just be thanked as a 2-person team essentially. So.
Yeah.
I'll distribute these, and I'll just caution council that these will end up in the record. So if you don't want a doodle to end up in the record, keep it clean.
Or if we do want a doodle to end up in the record.
And I think we don't need your name on the ballot, right, for the record. So keep that in mind, too.
Okay.
So as always, it's hard. As always, there's several people seem meritorious. So. And I would note that there were some people nominated last year that I was hoping to see nominated again this year, too. So I would say to people out there, if your nominee doesn't win, please don't give up. Nominate them again next year.
Get a lot of really great nominees.
Right.
You can only pick one.
Right.
That's very true.
Well, and I'd also like to thank the people who did the nominating, because some of these nominations really were very thoughtfully done, and people put in a lot of work, and I really appreciated the expression of love that it represented, that came through in a very real way. So thanks, folks, for taking it seriously.
So you want us to just vote, and then somebody's going to pick them up again?
I'll be by when I know you're all done.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to talk it over, I know in years past.
Care to do that?
Yeah.
Well, we discussed whether we were going to do that, so.
Okay.
It's hard. I think
hard.
this year's really hard.
Yeah.
See, I would almost tend to disagree.
You think this one's easier?
I do, actually, yeah. When I think about significant things that have occurred in the city of Milwaukee over this last year, yes, I think that it's a little bit easier this year than perhaps in the past few.
And it's just a majority that wins, right?
It's much harder
So
for me.
there's 2, and the one's the 2 wins. Did everybody fold their ballots now?
So they can't be told apart. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
Scott, do you have a drum roll set ready?
No pressure.
You had that great video for Carefree Sundays. You could have a drum roll video.
Okay. Confirm the results. After the first round of balloting, Greg Heemer has 2, Lisa Lashbrook has 2, and Kim Travis has 1. I think we'll need a second set of
I
ballots.
think you are correct.
And in this round, it's just the top 2 that advance.
Just the top 2.
So we're looking at Heemer and Lashbrook.
I'm glad I created those.
Yeah.
Heemer and Lashbrook.
See, I think it's hard. All 3 of those were deserving.
I know. And that's the hard part about it, is that people nominate some really good people. I mean, for me, when I think about significant changes in Milwaukee,
Everybody ready?
All polls
No, I'm
reported?
getting there.
Oh. It's that far county, that far.
That's right. The rural hustings.
Okay.
We're really, really fortunate in the city of Milwaukee that we have the volunteer base that we do. A lot of cities go begging for people to serve on committees and boards and commissions and to step up and do things and to take action and all of that. And we have it consistently and constantly, and they're great people and they do great things for this city. This city would not be what it is if it weren't for volunteerism.
Yeah.
And before he announces, I would definitely want to reiterate that if the person you nominated does not win this year, don't let that be a reason not to nominate them again this year,
Absolutely.
because we can only pick one.
Yeah, and that goes for, years past,
And years
too.
past,
Yeah.
there's several people in here that all deserve it. I mean,
Yeah.
like, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And every year they're putting in a lot of work. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we will
Like
keep,
Andrew Taylor put in hundreds of hours, I know for a fact, working on the tree board stuff. I mean, he really got
He
that
left
kicked
us,
off.
though.
You wouldn't be here to receive his
That's right.
award.
I know. He bailed. That's what probably cost him the votes.
I hope he's not watching this.
Yeah, I hope so
No, I
too.
think he'd be all right.
Yeah.
We should refrain from discussing before the ballots are counted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he wasn't one of them. He wasn't one of
I
them.
agree.
We don't know what Scott's doing over there.
No comment.
Just kidding.
By a vote of 3-2, Greg Heemer is your 2018 Volunteer of the
All
Year.
right. Congratulations, Greg.
he may still be in the building, I'm not sure.
Oh, he likes to call us MTV. He likes to go home and watch MTV, as he says.
I thought he went home and watched us on TV.
That's that's us.
He calls us
MTV,
Oh, I
Milwaukee
see.
TV.
Oh, Milwaukee TV. I was talking about MTV, the kids show.
No, us.
Well, Well, congratulations, Greg. Our next steps are basically to reach out to Greg and interview him and get all the information that we can for the dinner, to thank him and come up with a good speech, basically, that outlines everything that he's done and continues to do. The invitations for the dinner will go out shortly, so everyone's received an email or save the date, but we'll send out printed invitations probably in the next few weeks for the April 30th dinner. And I think that's about it. So I'll be reaching out to all of our board and commission staff liaisons and whatnot to put together a nice slideshow for the event as well, like I normally do, along with mayor's talking points about kind of what all the boards, commissions, and NDAs have accomplished over the year, and also the volunteer of the year. So, yeah.
So I went to the Ardenwald NDA meeting last week, and somehow it came up, the volunteer of the year. Well, first off, they were making a pitch that they need a couple new officers, and they were trying to make a pitch for stepping in, people to volunteer. And they had a good turnout. It was one of those nights of kind of questionable weather, but they had a really good turnout anyway. And so after that, somehow a little bit later, the volunteer of the year dinner came up, and they were like, oh, can we buy tickets for that? And Matt Rinker said, no, that's why you should volunteer to be an officer, because that's who gets to go to the dinner, and so that's your dinner is becoming famous and potentially a recruiting device for the NDAs.
That was the plan. Get involved with your NDA and boards and commissions for that dinner.
Yeah.
And once they hear about the bingo, through the roof.
I mean, it's going to be the best bingo ever, I think. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
I'm glad I was able to
Jason.
stump the council tonight. I think I stumped you guys better than anybody else tonight, so it's good.
All right. Let's see, our next item will be our legislative and regional issues conversation with our assistant city manager. I never got to see the 2020 letter.
Really? I have it too.
Yeah, but
You could be looking at it right now.
Yes, he could. Thank you.
Oh, she's got them.
yeah.
Okay.
3:30 this afternoon, this morning.
Yeah. This afternoon.
I see.
I was getting my bike gear on and riding to.
You just need
It's
a.
supposed to snow tonight. You rode your bike?
Yeah.
Doesn't
So
Audible?
this is just
If
okay. I
it
see.
snows, you can drive me home in my car.
Okay, good.
I'm okay.
I don't think it's going to snow tonight. I'm saying no more snow. Can we have a resolution?
If it was going to do it, I wish it would just do it.
Do it.
We
Yeah.
had like time off school, and then the kids were disappointed that there was no actual real snow.
Snow to play in.
Oh, that must be the 2020 letter.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's so long.
It's only one page. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of made everything one page because I killed so many trees today between a couple different meetings. So if it looks a little shrunken, it's because I shrunk it. And if it was only the signature page, I just left it off. So you won't see, on some of them, you're not going to see all the CCs. Okay, so tonight, what I did with the bill tracking thing just now was I've highlighted in blue any of the bills where we've actually sent a letter. So you'll see the SJR and SJR 21 that was discussed last time about revising Measure 50, property tax. So we actually did submit a letter for that hearing. There's no subsequent hearing on those that has been scheduled yet. If you flip to the second page, you'll see that the HB 2001, there was the February 11th hearing. It's blue because the city sent a letter per our last conversation, so that went down. I don't see
Do you know if any amendments addressing our concerns have been offered?
Not yet. I've been doing phone tag with Alyssa Kenny Geyer's staff, so I'm still working on it and need to follow up with them, but it also hasn't been scheduled yet, so
okay.
To be continued. Then let's see. Okay, green, when you get to the green boxes, those are the ones that I have on deck for tonight. So, and you received the speed letter, which you've already approved. And Mayor, I don't know why that middle paragraph is, oh, I know why it's yellow. Because I added it and I just wanted you to see that's the only new part of the letter. I did that. I forgot. So it's supposed to make everything easier so that you can see that's the only change between what we've already sent down and what I'm saying we send down tomorrow. And the purpose is because I had sort of been treating the House bill and the Senate bill as the same. They're really not the same. The Senate bill gives us the same power that Portland got last time, which allows us to go 5 miles per hour lower on residential streets without asking anyone. The new bill, the House bill, actually expands it to beyond residential streets, so arterials and collectors. And so the way this bill is now, or this letter is now written is, hey, why don't you let us do both? Why don't we get to do it anywhere? So that's the change. So I don't know that I need, this is more just letting you know, you've already taken the position, which I think is consistent with what's in here. It just needs to go down tomorrow as revised because the hearing is tomorrow at 5. Yeah, so it'll go, I'll just send it in the morning.
But it's only invited testimony, right?
It's invited testimony. Yeah. So, okay. Okay, so the green ones, back to my wonderful plan here. The green ones include these letters. So the other letter that you all have, and Councilor Heisey's been a champ, is on HB 2007. This is the diesel emissions legislation, and it does not currently have a hearing scheduled at this time. But we decided it would be a good idea, just based on previous conversations, go ahead and get something in. That way, if we're in a similar position, we already have a letter that we can just slightly amend when the hearing pops up. So did I get any edits back? I did. I got one edit back from the mayor to the first paragraph, which you can see in the track changes. Instead of saying, in addition to health impacts, city diesel particulates contribute significantly to local and global climate change effects, his recommendation was you just strike local and just leave it global climate.
You want an explanation?
Yes, I would like to understand what you mean by local climate.
Yes. I was trying to be concise.
I gathered that.
Yeah, so when you have soot, you have a black, highly absorptive surface that is responsible for creating heat in its immediate environment.
Right.
So that's what was intended by local climate. If you would like to rephrase that, that would be fine by me.
So yeah, I would. The simplest suggestion was just to pull the local and. I figured it was something to that effect, but technically speaking, climate is
yeah. I hear you.
Is global.
Yeah.
I read the local because it's the effects, so
it's attached to climate.
Yeah, I understand, but.
What have you said?
Effects can't be the result of.
Well, you could in the way we currently use English, it is ambiguous.
Yeah. So yeah, we could add local heat island effects and climate change. We could add.
Or move local to the beginning toward the beginning of the sentence. In addition to local health impacts.
Local heat island effects, comma. Make it, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fine.
Either way, I'm
agnostic.
You're the lawyer.
What about significantly to poor local air quality?
I'm looking at the English major.
And global.
Contribute significantly to global climate change and local heat, and exacerbating local heat island effects or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, put it after. Okay, sure.
Okay.
You got that?
I think so. Exacerbates local heat island effects.
And I assume you'll take out the various brackets at the bottom that we left there in case anything came out of this discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that others was really for you, I think, but, yeah.
Unbeknownst to Christina, I'm going to enlist some help tomorrow because I'm turning these letters around a little slow just in my one-woman operation. So she's going to help me get this. I'm going to ask for some help tomorrow to get it cleaned up and help get it out. So yes, I feel very confident that we're going to be able to make this happen. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take the local and out, global climate change and exacerbates local heat island effects. And that'll be the end of that one. Okay.
Are you coming to the chamber thing tomorrow?
I am supposed to come to yes.
If you could bring them, I could sign them then.
Oh, okay. Real signatures.
Huh?
Yeah, we can sign it for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can do it that fast, I know that's asking a lot.
I don't think it'll take too long. Okay. So those two are done. The other one, that I had a draft support letter for HB 2020 that Sustainable Northwest had sent out. This is the Green Energy Jobs Bill. Kathy, Councilor Heisey had amended it to add local Milwaukee information and flavor. So that's the draft you now have in front of you. There isn't a hearing scheduled for this one, right?
There was a request to get information in, or to get testimony in this week, letters of support. There's sort of a general effort to
get stuff in. They've been having regional meetings like around the state where they've been gathering input, but there's not like a work. So that's happening right now. And those are going through soonish. So I think like they might be wrapping up. So yes, they're trying to, I guess.
They may be right.
Yeah, the second. It looks like the second was the last.
Yeah, I think
the last scheduled hearing.
Yeah.
So just responding, since this was one we'd identified as wanting to weigh in on anyway, as consistent with the council goal, it's just looking at the language and seeing if you want to make any changes. So I think you have a little, I mean, we could give this one a couple days, or whatever you guys want to do. We'll take your lead in when you want to get it in. So
I wouldn't give it more than a couple of days, simply because the ask was really to try and build support for making sure that this bill keeps moving.
So fair to say by the end of the week or Thursday.
Yeah,
I'd say Thursday.
But it's also quite good. So I don't know how, if you don't have any edits, it can go tomorrow.
While they're reading on the speed limit bill, we might want to forward that to LOC and to Thorn Run. The mayors were interested in, they distribute all their stuff.
I have been, I have Dan, I just keep Dan on my CC line, assuming he then sends it out from there. So tell me if that's not working. I can add the LOC though. I didn't have them on my last version.
Yeah, I think more cities than us would be interested, so giving them an opportunity to.
The speed?
Yeah.
I mean, I sent that one around within Clackamas County.
Yeah,
I didn't send it beyond.
Yeah, right.
I was thinking to send it to Beaverton and Hillsborough, but I didn't do that.
But I think if we can get it in front of the metro mayors, that gets us 24 cities.
Yeah. So they routinely circulate that stuff? Yeah, they pass it along?
They do a good job of circulating.
You haven't sent us their notes in a couple weeks now, so if you've got new notes on that, those would be good.
Okay, I'll look back and see if I've missed one.
Does anyone have any changes to 2020, or are we actually good?
It's fine.
I think it's great.
Okay, then we'll just do it in the batch tomorrow. Okay. The only other inquiry I got, so I did add at the very last page just the bills that we're talking about that aren't tracked by LOC. I just stuck them on here. Councilor Parks, you had asked me about the independent contractor status, HB 2498. My read of that bill, and again, I just did it tonight, but is it really, I wouldn't see it as applying to us. I am guided right now in terms of our contractors by our union contract and the rules related to, what we do according to the contract we have in place. This seems mainly targeted to private entities that hire contractors, and sort of setting up a test for those private businesses to determine if they really should be hiring an employee versus calling someone up. If someone's essentially an employee, but they're calling them a private contractor, it's to try to elucidate that. So I don't see it affecting us, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, there was quite a bit of discussion about it at the Chamber's public policy meeting when another city was there, plus some special districts, and they couldn't get a really clear answer as to whether or not, our municipalities might be somehow, government entities, whatever, might be somehow affected by that, so.
Yeah, and I can have some further conversation. I didn't have a chance to talk to Gary and ask further.
Yeah.
But to me, our union contract would be the guiding document that I have about that topic.
So yeah, I flagged it, so I'll watch it as it comes up to see how that language actually falls out. So, yeah.
We talked court fines last time. We decided to watch and see in terms of if we could do, this is a bill that would take away the court's ability to do automatic, to take someone's license away from them if they're not paying their fines. And you kind of just wanted to know what's happening to it. It's moving. I mean, it's had 2 hearings and it's scheduled for a work session on March 11th. When I was looking at the testimony, it kind of varied. You did have local governments saying, hey, this would be hard for us. You also have Multnomah County saying, we like it. So I guess you could still have it in the watch and see. I just wanted to let you know.
And I would say today, and I'm not going to remember his name, from the district attorney's office for Clackamas County, Joe, let's see, why am I blanking on his name?
John Foote?
No, one of the assistants. Anyhow, I mean, he didn't speak specifically to the bill, but he was certainly very concerned, and they are overwhelmed with how many licenses get revoked because of all the different municipalities and all the different courts that use that as a tool. So I would be surprised if I actually kind of flagged it as something I would like to follow up with Clackamas County with the DA's office about that, because I think that the concern is real. It's more adding additional burdens to people who are already burdened. And he talked about, an example of a woman who had thousands of dollars in fines and had lost her driver's license. And someone continues to drive without a license because of this. And they end up just compiling, and there's no end in sight. And this is, so it's a bigger problem than our little city realizes. We haven't had a big conversation about that. And I think, if we were going to do something on this, then I would want to have a lot more information on how big the problem is for our residents.
Well, and I'd want to hear from the judge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the judge has just been stopping by, just so people know. So she is still watching this. She's real clear that she works at your discretion. So she was pretty agnostic from that perspective. If the city's okay with it, then she's not terribly worried. The issue is there's a tipping point where the court no longer has the teeth it needs to be successful. And at that point, it's just a discussion with all of you as to whether or not you want to continue the court. Yeah. And she doesn't know if that's this or if it's something else. But she's just making sure we know where she's at.
I mean, it would be nice to see I think, some of those jurisdictions maybe have overzealous judges or judges who overuse. It'd be nice to see some sample cases from her of, where she thinks how she uses it and where she thinks it's been useful in moving somebody to compliance.
Yeah, one of the examples that was used in the testimony was actually about our court. So she went back to look at whether or not our court had misacted, basically, that it had caused harm to an individual. In that testimony, she discovered that the individual actually just never showed up. And so it wasn't until they were actually losing their license that they hired an attorney to try and change it, but they didn't actually participate in the court proceedings up to that point.
Like I said, I just kept it here because we talked about it last time. We could maybe, and I don't know if it makes sense to, if she wants to elevate it further, she can.
She's really okay.
She's okay.
She didn't feel the need to come in and talk. If you decide that you would like to talk to her, she'll come in. She's more than willing.
What else?
SB 262. Are we following that? Is that getting any kind of?
Where is that?
That's, what it'd be,
Is that the
third
one you-
page, about the
Oh, yeah.
third of the way down. 262.
And this is, I'm going to need your help. This one, and you and Justin, this extends the sunset on local optional property tax exemption for multifamily development. I believe you figured it out while we sat here last time and maybe had a follow-up conversation with Alma.
So the discussion that we had last time was that this allows us to continue the ability, so where we can actually adopt, which we haven't done yet. So the question was whether or not I'm looking to Justin, do you remember this?
I'm recalling.
Okay. So that this was the legislation where it would continue our ability to work with the school district to get our 50% so that we have it in perpetuity.
For low-income housing.
Correct.
Right, so this matters a lot, and I'd be curious why anybody would be trying to not extend the sunset.
Let's see what it's doing.
I'm not, but
Well, I can tell you that we have certain districts that would prefer they not extend the sunsets.
that's probably true.
Yeah.
That's probably who it is special districts, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Because I know that we've had special districts not interested in us having it in place.
Yeah.
But if, since we're sitting on it right now, we had talked about this and we sort of let it go just because we informed you at the meeting. If you would like me to get something in writing from Alma, I can.
Yeah, I think we should try and find out if is it in any way likely that the sunset could not be renewed, and if so, what would be our strongest way to engage to help cause it to renew?
Yeah, I will reach out to her right now while we're sitting here just to make sure she gets it tonight. And Kelly and I can have a discussion with her tomorrow.
It looks like it's moving. I mean, it's almost all the testimony that was submitted is from people that it looks like they would like it. Let's see what happened on. And it was recommended at a committee from work session to pass, so it's on to finance and revenue, and I don't know what the fiscal is.
So the committee recommended.
Yeah, they passed it out of the policy committee, and now it's on to finance and revenue.
Finance and revenue.
So they're going to go assess, because by extending the exemption, you got to assess what impact it has on anyone else. Yeah, it kind of looks like it's chugging along. It didn't have any no's. It had one excused. Yeah.
So if staff is correct in its assessment, I would assume that this team would be supportive of continuing with the removing the sunset or allowing it to continue forward. If we are wrong, we'll let you know. But if you would like to, we'll let you know, and then someone can choose to write a letter or not to write a letter at that point towards that effect. Okay.
Say that again. What do I need to do?
Nothing.
Okay.
So I have sent an email to Alma. We will be in touch with you tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Anything else y'all want to touch base on? There is legislation, the bill number, which I'm not thinking of off the top of my head right now, but I did just check it, relating to lowering the age for who's required to wear helmets on a scooter, just in case we want to talk about that in a couple minutes. It was going to lower it to 16. It looks like it's not progressing much further. It didn't have a great hearing.
Okay.
So I guess at this point, I wouldn't expect that to change.
Which
But
is
the
interesting
article
because
is really worth
it's
reading.
only, is it 16 or 18-year-olds that and down that have to wear helmets on bicycles.
Yeah, it would basically be making it match. I believe that's the intent, is to try to make it match. Yeah, so that you're protecting.
Right, yeah.
But it just didn't go over well.
There's just a great conversation to watch from the hearing. I would encourage it.
I just checked, because I didn't know, I mean, it looked like this was from last week or whatever, and I just checked all the annexation bills, and none of them are moving. Nothing's going on there.
You'll now have the article.
Anything else you were hoping to hear about this week that I have not addressed? Okay. We'll get these 3 letters off tomorrow, and I'll wait and see on if we want any correspondence on 262.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, back to scooters?
Yep. And while the team is pulling together, just because I have a lull and someone has reminded me that I should do this, just wanted to make sure everybody saw the announcement that we have a new chief who will be starting for the city of Milwaukee. Captain Luke Strait has agreed to serve as our upcoming chief. He's super excited. We'll be doing a swearing in on the April 16th council meeting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Party time.
Are you going to make some brownies?
Special brownies?
Are you going to make some?
We will have food.
That is not
We'll
what I
probably do
meant.
a reception both as a goodbye to Chief
But it was
Bartol
funny, right?
and a hello to now Chief Strait at the same meeting.
Okay, cool.
We're back.
All right. So, it seems like the sort of the 2 major options are, well, 3. Don't allow them. Allow them to just do a business license like anybody else in any other business would do, and then have nothing further to do with them. Or have 1.5 staff spending their whole life monitoring and looking at data and doing all these things around scooters. It seems like there's a middle ground there where we have a more direct conversation with the scooter companies. We come to an actual agreement that says this is what we are hoping for, this is what, we would like to see some scooters distributed here and here and here. Whatever, we would like the rules to say don't park right in front of people's doors, whatever all the things are we would like. And then let them run that. And if we receive complaints that they're not living up to that or they're not doing those things, then we can communicate that. That doesn't mean that we have to monitor all the data and know for a fact that every morning there's 6 scooters at Hillside or whatever thing, we're trying to say. I think telling them what we would like is much more likely to get us what we want than not saying anything to them and then just hoping that some good thing happens.
So I do want to comment on that for a minute on a couple of fronts. The first is that when in the community, when we set up guidelines like that, there is an expectation of enforcement. So I am very uncomfortable ever passing legislation where we say, we hope you meet it, because there will be, people call me on the bag ban right now.
Me too.
Right, and I think that that's important, and that's why we did it in sort of the staged approach, is because I could enforce to that level, and there's an expectation in the community that I am enforcing to that level. Tim has been out on the sites. He is confirming we are delivering a product. So I am very uncomfortable saying, yeah, you should, and not having a tool. I'm also concerned from the perspective that we would be, I'm concerned because we have proof that in Portland that didn't work, that they didn't follow the directions and they didn't meet the expectations. And they dismissed them even with the data collection, even with all the stuff where they were tracking it and making sure that the implementation happened. They still ended up finding companies for not hitting those thresholds. So we know that there is a previous in the region history of that happening. And I like doing programs right. So if we're going to do it, then to me, that's where I wanted to be. I'm going to be really honest. When we were first talking about this, I tried to figure out if I could staff it at the level we needed to. I can't. So we can send a nice letter with expectations, but I think if you pass an ordinance or you pass a resolution or you pass a program, the expectation is going to be that I fulfill that expectation. And I'm just being very transparent that Kelly is the program. And Kelly does not have time. There's not a staff, we don't have a transportation planner on staff, we don't have a program manager on staff to do this. So I am very uncomfortable making commitments that I can't keep on that front.
Do you think there's, I know there was some discussion about, how much what revenue Portland's getting off of it. And it doesn't sound like it would get us to a full-time staff person, but would it be enough to maybe pay for a temporary, employee to help Tim or somebody do some part-time enforcement?
We did look at whether or not we could do some short-term stuff. And actually, Kelly was the one who's like, sure, we'll figure this out, right? She was super positive about that. The problem that I run into is that, I can't hire a staff person because there's no guarantee that the revenues are going to be consistent and are going to be coming in, and I don't have a secondary revenue source to be able to offset that. That's not your question, but that's part of why we've been cautious about saying that we can take on the programming through revenue sources. There's also, as an example, in San Francisco, a couple weeks ago, Lime decided, without talking to the city, that they were just going to pull the e-bikes.
Really?
Yeah, and they did. They did it in 3 cities in Northern California, and they were just done. And so there's also sort of this thing of how much, to have the kind of teeth that I need to have, I need a Reba. I need somebody who's really in there making sure that we're getting the things. And that is a robust program. Portland said that they only had 1 point, whatever it was, working on the project. But when I met with them, there were 7 people in that room. I don't think they were calculating the dollars.
That was not very credible when they said that.
So I don't think that they're actually looking at how much time and effort. I think that they want to do a program. They've been pretty positive about it. And they're looking at the day-to-day functionality, not all the pieces that go into making it happen. So that's that piece. We did look at whether or not we could get grant funding in order to pay somebody short-term, but that also presupposed that then it wasn't needed at the same levels, and I can't commit to that either based on the fact that at the tail end of the Portland study, they still were not fulfilling their obligations to have these devices at the locations that they said they would have them at, which is what led them then to be fined. So there's also that piece of they just weren't, and I'm not saying they're bad actors, I'm saying that there were issues all the way through the pilot program that I would have to staff to. And with Portland, what they do is they say, hey, I can put that project on hold for a while, and I can move you into this seat while we go through this process. We simply don't have enough staff to put something on hold and to move people into place for a couple months while we figure it out and then move them back out. We're already over capacity for most of that top-line staff.
I think where I guess I'll just add, where I've struggled with this topic a little bit is just there's the time of just developing it initially before you even could get any more revenue in, and what I'm taking somebody off of to get, if I were going to do the right-of-way permit approach, the person I'm taking off that is the same person that I need to be fleshing out all the details of our painted intersections and the right-of-way encroachments on safe. And, just we have a lot going on. So it's the time in the interim, the startup time of even just defining it, even if then once you got them in the door, it did generate revenue that allowed you to hire somebody else. Right now, it's pull it together based on what we've got. And so you're just kind of weighing the value of a scooter program against the value of the time they're already spending on safe or something else, or kind of like with Natalie's time. So it's, that's been the juggling act, is just to try to keep it going, flush it out, see what we can do, what's a streamlined approach that allows the city access to the service in a way that allows those other plates to keep spinning. So,
do you imagine that our right-of-way permit or whatever the mechanism is would be substantially different than Portland's?
Yeah, I mean, I just reading through theirs, I mean, it's many pages long in terms of the terms that they expect. And for me, that's where I would have to echo Ann's concerns about going to that extent, because I do not believe that we have the capacity to actually follow up on those requirements. So I'd be issuing a permit that I don't intend to enforce, because it's pages and pages of code that they've developed. So I certainly am all for copying and stealing and using what's already out there. But I don't think we could just cookie cutter bring that over here. We'd have to do something more streamlined than that, which would take some analysis and some time to pull together. And I think where I'm a little more freewheeling or whatever is I don't know the impact yet. Do we have to have that or not? And so this is the kind of the lo-fi option, which is see if they're allowed to be here and we actually recognize them being here, what the impacts are. So that's kind of where it fell.
We also had a discussion just transparently about Metro and their desire to come up with standards for smaller governments, because we don't have this capacity to do the Portland model. In conversations with Elliot, I didn't get the sense that those are ready for us just to ingest into our process. So they're not ready, but they may be. There may be a point in 6 months or a year where we're having a different conversation. But part of the issue here is that we're being very front edge on a technology where a lot of governments haven't worked it out yet. They haven't sort of figured out the things you're about to hit, so we're going to hit them. And we've got to be ready with the staffing for that.
And the other thing I'll add is systemically, we're just at a different place. So the main takeaway I had from kind of Portland's anecdotal things is it is an interesting option to provide when you have bike share, when you have looked at pricing, when you have made a lot of different choices in your downtown, which are disincentives to driving, to see who decides to hop on a scooter, and can it be that other mode that kind of gets you at that? How do we get the likely but concerned type rider, somebody who might feel more comfortable on a scooter, and does it start to fill in that need? We don't have all the other stuff yet. We haven't done the pricing downtown. We don't have, the other modes yet. So we're in a little bit of a different place, I guess, too, in terms of when you would do this strategy in your transportation
mix
development timeline. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's
strategy.
Yeah, it's just we're in a little bit of a different place, too, not even just because of our size, but just based on what we're up to right now.
So when we started in January, I think when Natalie did or at some point, somebody said something about the college was interested in e-bike. Mm-hmm. And has there been any specific proposal on that, or are they talking to anybody, or?
Yeah, so I've been talking to Ray Atkinson from Clackamas Community College. So Clackamas Community College does not want e-scooters on campus. They exclusively want an e-bike option or just a bike share option. Another concern of theirs is it needs even dockless bike share without having to lock it up to any sort of infrastructure. That's kind of the direction that they were hoping to move. I believe they brought it to the Clackamas Transportation Council, if that even exists or if I'm making that up. But he did bring it, and he's been keeping everyone informed of what their hopes are, but they haven't found, from what I can understand, they haven't found another partner who would offer that except for Milwaukee.
Would it have been CTAC? Are you on CTAC?
Jen goes. Jen goes to CTAC for us, and I don't know if it came there, but I can check. Probably. I bet it did go to CTAC.
That would be the only thing I can imagine.
Yeah,
I know he presented even about what we've been discussing as well to them. So Clackamas Community College is interested, but they have their own requirements beyond e-scooters. So we would be needing to design a program with them in mind if we wanted to really emphasize that partnership.
Are there vendors who are wanting to come in with e-bikes the way there are with the scooters, or not really? Yes?
Well, at least in the last conversation I had with Lime, they were still interested in, they were doing e-bikes, but it sounds like they pulled them out of a couple of cities. I don't know why.
And I just saw the article. So I read through it and I was surprised because we've had discussions about it being growing, but we've also talked to Portland about the fact that they're not sure that they have the capacity, that companies have the capacity because of how long it takes to build the e-bikes, right? The part of the scooter thing is that they're disposable because they're so easy to make. And they're being made really fast. The e-bikes are a lot harder. And so there was some concern when we were talking to them just about whether or not they could even ramp up. And it's also possible in San Francisco, they looked at the numbers and went, scooters are just simply getting more ridership. We want to pull, the bikes because this is where we're making our money, and it's not worth having them there.
Yeah, the bikes are more expensive.
Yeah.
And they don't charge really more per hour or mile or whatever it's hour for the bikes than they are for the scooters. So I could see them, particularly if people are mistreating the bikes.
Well, and part of the discussion that Kelly finds fascinating about me is that when I was in Park City, we actually were in the process of launching an e-bike program. It's been highly successful in Park City, but in that case, it was actually owned by the city. When we've talked to other people in the region, they've been talking about doing it where they own the bikes because they want to be able to make sure they're distributed, and there's some stuff that goes into that. I'm not saying that's the route we would have to go, and I also don't have the capacity right now to create that program, which I think this was seen as kind of a workaround in part from us not having that staff capacity. But we have had an early dialogue with Leila Aman as we're looking at the code in 18 months after the comp plan is we're trying to implement as to whether or not, as we look at parking numbers and parking requirements on buildings, we start transitioning to a bike share program where maybe there's an investment in that instead of having the same number of parking stalls or something. We're trying to work that out, and we'll be having those conversations with you after the comp plan and when we're sort of ready to start opening up the code.
So before we, before we bring this to any kind of a vote, I'd like us to reach out to the two likely vendors and find out what is the financial piece of that, so that we do have some kind of sense of, based on reality.
You mean what the fee is per mile or per bike, or
what the city could charge, or
for the licensing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it reaching out to the vendors, or is it just reaching out to Portland and seeing what, would we?
It's different. They cut a deal with each community differently. But before we go down this path, I just want to remind you, I don't have the staff capacity to go through a process in which we are collecting a fee and that we're using it to hire staff and run a program. Part of why we were really clear in the staff report is we are very limited on how much we can take on right now. So you can overrule me, but I'll probably be coming back at the next meeting in which I say these are the things you're going to have to give up if we're going to go down this path, because it is staff capacity for Kelly and for others. I'm happy to ask the question, and you do get to make this determination. I just want to make sure you know that my response is going to have to be, I don't have staff capacity, and here's what you're giving up in order to get it. And that's okay.
We can only do what we can only do. We can't take on everything, unfortunately. We'd like to. We can't do it.
And more than likely, it's Kelly's time, unfortunately. Sorry, I should say that on air. More than likely, it's Kelly's time, just because she is not only the city engineer, but also the lead city transportation planner. Thank you.
I'm just picking up degrees right and left.
She's putting all these
I'm making
initials after her name
certifications.
now.
I'm putting in plaques, and we're putting on the wall.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm not quite sure what to do with that one based on that back and forth, but I think you could assume the 25-cent per ride number, and that wouldn't take a call. Or we could base it off of information we already have. What I would be a little, I don't want to start negotiating with them without direction. So that would be the only.
Right.
That's why I thought the Portland number may just be the thing to go with, but.
Well, and they were really, I mean, PBOT was wonderful. They said, we really like you. We wish you the best of luck. We hope that they'll choose to provide service in your community. What we have heard is that smaller communities do not get the same treatment as larger communities just because there's not the same market share. But we haven't talked to them about it, so it could be obvious.
Everyone has been really nice and wants us to be successful and likes the idea of us being, so Portland's been really kind and Metro has been kind, and they like the idea of us, like the small but mighty little engine that could, like, pulling it off or whatever, but they're not gonna do it for us.
I do want to say Ray Atkinson from Clackamas Community College has put in a lot of time helping us research this. He's actually had an extensive background in it. Same with Elliot at Metro. He's been helping us a lot.
So they've been great at providing information, but at the end of the day, you can give us all the data, you can give us data, we have to crunch it, there's just a set of things only we can do. So
I don't know, it just seems to me that with all the research that's been done and all the knowledge that's been presented to us and the options that have been presented to us, that we should realize that, like I said, we can only do what we can only do, and if we just do the minimalized program, at least we have a foot in the door and not putting any other programs or projects of the city in jeopardy of being set aside, and having folks know that we have an interest and all of those kinds of things. So if we just kind of shirt tail on Portland's project, I'd be fine with that. I just can't see doing anything larger than that at this time.
And Portland's not offering to let us shirt tail, right?
Well,
Not from any data or any of that stuff.
They're going to come over here anyhow, so having a business license for them and then letting just, it just happens however it happens, but we don't provide all the enforcement support, and we don't provide staff time, and we don't have any ability to do that.
So you're talking about option A.
I'm talking about option A.
Yeah. Well, so option A, B, or 1, 2, the first 3 dots, because they're not numbered, really seem to me they're really the same thing, except maybe the question of whether we give them a business license or not.
More or less,
right?
I think you're right.
Well, and I think the mayor provided some really good insight into what the business license model gets you, right? Which is them being able to activate within the city boundaries in comparison to being ridden in from Portland and then not having a return.
But again, I think that's probably their power to change.
Yeah,
that doesn't require anything from us for them to change. They could choose to change that.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to the mayor about this part. I don't know why they do that. I'm guessing, based on the city manager's meeting I went to, my guess is that it was their way of protecting themselves against cities who got really irritated when they showed up in their town.
Yeah. It keeps them from being sued by cities.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so we say, we're not going to sue you. We're going to wait out this pilot and let them come, but I still have concerns about giving them.
We don't want to have any input as to, we would like to see scooters in these areas. We don't want to have any, we just want to say, sign up for a business license and do as you please.
I'm saying no business license, yeah.
And I want, so what do you think we can, I mean, if we, is there maybe some conditioning of a license? And I mean, it would be after the fact, but, to get data. I mean, if part of the question, we want data, and we don't necessarily, we want it before we get it from Metro.
That's what the whole FTE is about, is crunching data.
It's enforcement too.
That's also about making sure that they're deployed where we say we want them deployed, and I'm talking about just the aggregated data about where they end up.
I've seen it as rudimentary, as a single sheet handout once per month of rides. The question is, is that worth it if you're gaining that much basic data for what you're asking, and are you going to be influencing what operators will be in your area on your requirements. I don't know.
I mean more in
No
terms of
requirement,
we're
you
not
just
getting
wanna-
any information from Portland out of there because they're telling us you're on your own and we're not going to share this data with you.
They've actually been pretty nice about just showing us what's here because their scooters accidentally show up here anyway. So we will get some information. We just don't have the capacity to crunch it. So we will have some information to be able to talk to you about with or without us putting a protocol in place. That's part of why Kelly got to this point where she's like, they're coming. So maybe.
Well, I mean, we all saw them last time, so we know they're coming.
They showed us a map, and they would show us again who was here, how many rides they thought were here. They have that information. What they aren't comfortable doing, and I don't see them doing, is just formally expanding their program and bringing us in. And because we asked, and I think we would have even been willing to consider, you can collect the revenue on it if you operate the program. We just want the service. And that's where they were like, we just, going outside our own city limits to provide this service is not something that we think will fly.
Well, I'm sure they would be very uncomfortable enforcing in Milwaukee.
Well, and I actually gave them the option to non-enforce. So, I mean, I gave them a range of options for how we could do this. I really wanted them to create the program, go through the data sets, help us make sure that these, figure out where they should be set, right? We needed policy help and then management help. There is still an outstanding conversation where the mayor may be speaking with somebody to try and help make that happen. We may want to wait on a vote for a couple more weeks to see if you're able to have that conversation. You asked if we're comfortable going down a path with very little information, little standards, few. No, I'm actually really not okay going down a path without us having all these things. But I don't want to stop something because I don't have capacity. And that's kind of where I got to, is I don't have capacity. But I also see that there's interest from you, especially as a team, to look at this as an option. And I simply don't have the tools. If we want to wait a few weeks, if you want to go talk to Portland and see if you can maneuver this differently for us, I think that would be absolutely the right direction to go to try and get a more robust program. But sans that, I don't have any other tools.
So is there, do you all have any sense of whether or not any of the choices that we have available to us will help push Metro toward being a bigger player in this?
I think there's a lot of push right now as it exists from the meetings I've been to. People have outright asked, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you moving forward? And I think the concern is the same as ours, is I don't know if they have the staff load for it currently. Right. I think Elliot's been fantastic in submitting a grant for this shared dockless data tool to even remove the first barrier of having a data analysis. But I mean, maybe in the future, since there is quite a few of us calling for it or asking for it. So, but I don't know. I can't say.
I would say the third bullet is your hold on issuing business license, but continue to engage, spend some amount of staff time between me and Natalie in terms of these regional conversations playing out about trying to create regional service to move it ahead in the future. Metro is great at many things. They don't run, they like to convene, they don't like to deliver transit service. Stuff like, I mean, that's just not what they do.
But wouldn't this be about delivering a policy framework? It wouldn't be about delivering the transit service. I mean, I guess it could be, but that's not really what
We've had both discussions with them.
Yeah, and I'm not them, I shouldn't speak for them. I just, but I will anyway, because I'm here and they're not. They will research, they will create data portals, they will go after grants, they will help us talk to other people that know stuff.
They'll do models,
in terms of setting up a plug and play operation that all we have to do is flip the switch and it turns on for us. I don't know that I see it getting all the way to that point, but Natalie is our friendly, helpful staff person that's attending those things, so she doesn't have my cynicism. And so she's participating in all that, and I do think there are things that they can help with. I just think it's going to be more knowledge-based and than doing.
So our Metro counselor was here last time when we ended up having to postpone. no matter which option we end up with, should we be writing her a letter?
Yep.
To say, please, step up and help the...
And we've done that from staff level, so we didn't bring it to you because we're not exchanging money, but we've endorsed their grant. We've told them that we really want their help, that we support us figuring out a way as a region to make this work for everyone. But this is one of the places where Metro could move into. It does have different leadership right now. They are changing the way they interact with the community. It is possible that they could come up with this. I think historically when organizations start to shift from one functionality to another, it's really uncomfortable. And so you may see pushback from other cities if they start getting in the business of actually running programs for other cities or offering that. The easiest option is for Portland to agree to it. To running
so
it for us.
What exactly is it we would like Portland to do?
Get the data, keep us, so they have the RFQ or RFP that they'll be doing for selected vendors, allow for those selected vendors to also function in Milwaukee, or allow us, we could write a contract where we just tag on to their bid package and it's the same vendors across the board. Have the data collection and understanding, work with them on the types of locations where these should be focused. So actually choosing the addresses.
Like have them figure out in our city where we want them located?
So they've had some success of understanding where these are successful and not successful. I'm not saying pick an address. I'm saying where should we be thinking about asking the companies to have these centered and then working with them to say you have to be, right now they do it by district. I'm not sure district works here. We may want something more exact about blocks or block faces. They actually, one of the things that was really intriguing to them was helping us come up with language for receiving or parking areas. So they've struggled with these sort of being everywhere. We've talked about Seattle has a good program, and they've sort of figured out how to have parking of the devices in specific locations on main streets and stuff. They'd like to get into that business a little bit. They want a small test case market. We could be the small test case market because we want that. So we had a very robust conversation about all the ways they could help us. We can go through their programming. Natalie took exceptional notes of our meetings, so we could talk about kind of where those pieces are, and we could get that to council.
I guess to be totally, I don't see them operating a scooter program outside city limits of Portland. I think that's going to be a hard stop for them. I think they will do everything short of that to help us. But
and that's because it's a pilot and it may be different after that, or
because it's a lot of work.
They don't want it.
I don't.
Okay.
I think it's, what other services do they go outside the city of Portland and provide for other jurisdictions? It's just not, that's where they do look at Metro and go, you want to? Or,
and they're like, hey, Metro.
Yeah. And then Metro says, we don't do, that's not what we do.
And City of Portland is an exceptional example of this because they do request raw data from the operator. So it's a lot of data. And then every morning they made their own dashboard tool and they check to see compliance. So what we're talking about when we have blocks is fleet distribution requirements. So you're going to be wanting to deploy certain amounts every 72 hours and having checking. And so you need somebody there to check for compliance. Or are they distributing in the direction that you're wanting? So I don't know if they would be comfortable collecting Milwaukee's raw data, meeting the sensitive information of Milwaukee residents potentially, and checking those distribution requirements and enforcing it with operators. I don't know if there's a way that they can separate the data that they're collecting from Milwaukee versus City of Portland, if they could only request the aggregate data from operators, but then that affects how you're affecting compliance. So it just starts to get really murky and hard to separate the two cities.
So to play devil's advocate, is anyone telling Uber and Lyft where they have to have drivers driving around? Why all of a sudden, because this is a weird form of transportation, are we deciding that we need to tell them where they're supposed to put the things?
Because they block sidewalks. Uber and Lyft, if Uber and Lyft picked up on the sidewalk, we'd enforce that.
Very often block bike lanes.
Yeah. Well, and they
Nobody
could be
seems to have
ticketed
a
for
problem
that.
with
Oh, they could be ticketed for that.
I have yet to see
Uber
a
and
ticket
Lyft
for
come
blocking
to
a
you.
bike lane
And
And to
anywhere.
be fair, and this is my past experience in a different jurisdiction, in Salt Lake City, when I was working in Salt Lake City, we actually tried. We had a very specific medallion conversation about whether or not Uber and Lyft could be operating within the city boundaries, and we lost the court case, I believe, on trying to contain where they were and how they were impacting the taxi cab companies because of the dependability of the taxi cab companies. So I know that there was a medallion conversation here around the airport because I've heard people reference it. I think they lost on that front. I'm not saying we need the regulation. I want it. I'm not saying you need it. But that's part of why we came to you with the option of.
I mean, I get the desire, right? I get the desire to make sure that there's scooters available in low-income neighborhoods. Not that we could really parse that out, but let's pretend we could. It's sort of like affordable housing, right? We would like the industry, we would like the developers to go build us some affordable housing. Not going to happen. The way, apparently, in our society, you get that level of equity to where you're making sure that all areas, all neighborhoods, all income levels get the thing, whatever the thing is by government actually providing it, not asking some business to provide that in a very specific way because that's what we want. We don't care that you're not going to make money there. We want that, so go do it. There's no other industry that we do that with. We would like it.
I think you do with PGE. I think you do.
Other utilities do that too.
Yeah, utilities is different. That's a quasi-governmental.
But you're in the right-of-way. I mean, part of this discussion is you are using our right-of-way in order to perform your business actions.
So is Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're great options either. I think that they are changing the market. What I'm, how do I put
We don't, though, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I mean, we don't regulate taxis right now.
No, but when Uber came in, I did make the pitch at some metro meeting, I mean, maybe more than once, that, Portland was setting up these rules for Uber and Lyft, and I was like, why isn't this a regional conversation? Because we don't license taxis, and so we're stuck with Portland's decisions on all this, and that didn't get anywhere then, but maybe the catalyst of the scooters will help get Metro more engaged.
So cities with code or regulation related to taxis have had an opportunity to have this conversation with Uber and Lyft about the terms that they're allowed to operate within. If you don't have it, you don't have that platform. You have a platform if they're on the sidewalk and they're operating with the right of way to set some, if you want to create a program and have a permit that you issue, and then you can try to make sure that whatever service is being provided in your right-of-way is provided in an equitable way. So you can do that. We don't get to do it with Uber and Lyft because it's not. That's what's going on, and that's what Portland is requesting, and that's actually what they're for Uber and Lyft.
Because that's in the right-of-way. The sidewalks are.
But I think a distinction though in that Uber and Lyft are a user-generated system. If I want an Uber, I have the app on my phone. It doesn't matter where I am. I call Uber and they come pick me up. And I think they're.
But they did get nailed too, and I don't know if it was here in San Francisco for failing to go pick up in certain parts of the city and actually having company policies that were exclusionary. I do actually think they've gotten nailed on that.
And I think they're bound by just typical equal access laws, and it's more of a civil rights thing, I guess, if they're going to areas or underserved areas, not providing their service, where the scooters aren't user generated. Like, if they all end up downtown in a heap downtown and they aren't redistributed.
They don't come to you.
They don't come to you. So then somebody has to be responsible for redistributing. How are we going to redistribute those? Are we going to do them on an equitable basis, or are we just going to take half of them and dump them on the other side of town? I don't know.
Just to bring us back to this really quick. So we don't. have to do this. And that is why you have this option in front of you. I think where you got the staff discomfort was we don't want to pretend we're doing it and then not do it and not have the tools to prove that we actually are making anyone comply with our rules. So we are saying, let's not say that you have to be any particular place on any particular guidelines. Let's just say you're operating here. And let's not set the same type of quotas or number of vehicles that have to be in different parts of town, because we do not believe that we will be able to ensure that that actually happens. So I agree that you don't have to.
I wanted to actually just jump in back about the data. We were talking about the data and analyzing that data. What are the questions that you would want answered from that data? I mean, I think I agree with Kelly. I mean, just let it happen organically. You know, it's like on campuses when they build sidewalks, they usually build the sidewalks in the wrong places. And you see where people walk
Social
across
trails.
the campus, the social trails. So just let it happen organically.
And it doesn't preclude us from coming back at a future date if this is a proven method of transportation, or if we suddenly see hundreds of these things coming in and being successful in town, for us going in, figuring out how to collect a fee, figuring out how to create a better program, figuring out what that looks like. But part of this too is that staff has spent a significant amount of time on something that may or may not be a fad. And so I'm a little bit concerned about us continuing to depend on these funds with this expectation that this is going to continue to be a service level, when it's a relatively new front-edge technology that may or may not continue to be a transportation mode. It may be, but if you allow them in, we figure out that they're successful here, they don't just disappear because they don't work here, and we can guarantee that X number are going to be in town, then we start figuring out how to run a better program.
The data is, for my purposes, I think as a city, we would want to know where these things are being used. I think it could inform a lot of, information about, helping us understand where, improvements need to be made, where these things, maybe where they're being operated, where we don't have very good infrastructure to support it, and maybe, that could be a conversation with PSAC. Certainly with our engineering department, are we prioritizing the right streets? I think there's a lot. Data is always good. So if there's an opportunity to get it through, like, maybe conditioning it as part of the licensing, I'd like to have it. I would never say, like, no, please don't give me any of your information. I don't want to know what you're doing in my city. I think that's...
And there may be a platform for us to be able to at least gather it, even if we don't have the ability to do anything with it right now.
That was my question. I mean, if we're concerned about data at all, then maybe there's some level of information that we can, some benefit that we can get out of this. I mean, the question earlier was, the reason I wrote that down was because what's the benefit of a business license? And I thought, well, if we can condition it on an exchange of information, then at least there's some benefit.
We can't, but there's no harm in us calling the companies.
Why couldn't we?
A business license I can't condition, I believe
No,
that
it would have to be a contract like all of the other cities are doing with them, some contract. And then it could be a very simple contract. It wouldn't have to be a 30-page contract. It could be a contract that says we would like this number of scooters, and that could be discussed. What is that number? We would like them distributed throughout the city. We would particularly like them.
Contract is not we would like. Contract is you will, I will. You will, I will.
People seem to have a problem with enforcing this thing, so you...
It's not binding.
If we don't let them know what it is we want, we for sure won't get what we want. If we let them know what we want, at least there's a chance we get what we want, whether or not we're going to enforce it. So whatever that mechanism is, where we say this is what we would like, and we agree to you having 200 scooters here, and you will pay us 25 cents a ride or whatever it is, the going rate, and that's that. And then we let it organically happen and track whatever information we ask for, which we can also ask for information. Portland takes the raw data. Portland knows what every scooter, where it started and where it stopped and when it did it.
And Portland has a big IT department.
Right. I don't think we necessarily need that. But
We don't
we
have
don't
the
know
capacity
what level of aggregation
that.
or output they have the capability of or were willing to do or whatever.
So the sheer amount of time that has taken us to get to today, just so we're all really fair, has been easily 100 hours of staff time. If we are going to just, the four of us sitting in meetings together is 4 hours each hour we sit through there. I sat through Portland's meetings for 3 hours at a pop, so we're probably at 6 hours there plus transportation, so 24 just from the meetings with Portland. I don't have that kind of time right now. I'm not saying you're not right. You are 100% right. You are actually literally telling you what I think I told you I really wanted when you and I started this conversation in my office, is I want to be able to run the kind of program where we get this kind of data, we set the standards up right, we do all the things. The issue is that it's Kelly's time. So right now, we can wait until I have an engineering director, and Kelly has a little more time. If you want to wait, we can wait until we have additional conversations with Metro, with other agencies. We can do that. But if we want to go down this path, there is just a sheer volume that it is going to take that I can't be dissuaded from, because I know how much time it has taken me to get to today. And those are negotiations with multiple vendors in order to come to an MOU agreement about what we are, or some sort of contract about what we are and are not getting out of this deal. I would love to say yes. I would love to have the kind of robust program that Portland is running right now. I think every major city in the United States is having this discussion right now. I think it's the right discussion for them to be having. They have staffs. I mean, PBOT is bigger than my staff. I just don't have that kind of capacity. So it's not a statement of, are you right? You are right. It is a statement of, can I meet it? And what am I giving up to get there? So I'm way oversharing now. But Kelly today, Kelly is trying to be your government affairs specialist. And she came in and she's like, I don't know. Here's the letters for today. I hope they're okay. Right? Like, she's basically just stringing this together with duct tape right now. So me adding this to her plate is significant. Natalie is entering into conversations around negotiations for how we get a clean energy source into the city. She's working with other cities. She's leading that conversation because it doesn't exist today. I can't pull her off of that. There's just some really big stuff happening right now. And part of it is that what Kelly is doing is making the access points for these scooters better. She's literally creating the access through the SAFE program that you guys designed. So,
well,
I can't believe
they're not supposed to go on sidewalks, right?
No, I'm talking about the bike lanes as we're creating those and as we're creating the access points. So here's the funny thing in all this. Where I started with the mayor 3 months ago, he and I flipped. Because he was saying, we can just do it with a business license, we'll just let him come in. And I have convinced him that there is some serious issues with that. I believe those issues, they are real. I just don't have the capacity on the staff right now to be able to deliver the program that I stand for. And that program is one where we have the data and we have all these things and we're really making sure that we're getting these programs out to people in an equitable way. But I don't want to take away your ability to try something.
So I just want to take a step back because this is we're getting way into details, which is valuable, but I want us to do something meaningful around climate change. That is key and essential. I am not hearing from staff that at this moment in time, in the form that we can afford to do it, is going to deliver that.
I think that's a fair statement. I'm watching Natalie shake her head.
I think this is just one tool, and I just don't know the amount of hours that'd be required to get this tool off the ground before it can actually show an impact. I do agree that mode shift and shifting people to use active transportation methods is going to be one of the most essential ways for us to close the carbon gap for our transportation and land use goals.
Yes,
I just
but
have no
what
idea if
difference
this
is it
would-
going to make if we do scooters now to close the gap on that transportation mode versus you putting your heart and soul and every spare minute your big
forget blood and
brain
sweat.
has, and blood and sweat, into negotiating our contracts with our utilities? What's going to deliver us meaningful climate change action? Because my sense, from what I know of the numbers, is the faster we get clean energy options into this city everywhere as much as possible, the faster we are making a difference in the impact on the climate that our community has. And I hate that this is the choice. I hate that this is the choice because I wish we were doing all of it at the same time. But if we are a city of 20,000 people with relatively flat income stream and we can't do it all, then I want to enable you to be able to do the thing that's going to get us as far down the road as fast as possible.
And it sounds like, I mean, it sounds like in another year, when Portland finishes their pilot, we may have a metro sort of framework. We may have better scooters that last longer and are, make the climate calculation different and better than they do now. It seems like there's so many things in flux right now that may look different a year from now. Or we may have an e-bike option with the community college, which is going to be part of our city bike sometime soon, I'm told.
I think that is the bike component we're trying to figure out. I think that part has to continue as a conversation. We got to figure out how we're going to get bikes out to people and what that's going to look like. I do think that the parking conversation is paired with that no matter what. We've got to figure that piece in the next.
So the simple concept where we just say, you can apply for a business license and go forth and do your thing. And we're completely hands off. We don't do anything. We don't tell them anything. We don't say we would like anything. We don't collect any money. We just say, go forth and have fun.
We collect the fee for the business license, and then we remind them what the laws are in the state, and we remind them that the police department is going to be enforcing on those laws.
So the fees for the business license are like $120.
Nothing.
Right, because they don't have employees. I mean, they go up if you have employees, but they wouldn't have any employees here.
Well,
so it's just the flat 110 or whatever it is.
The juicers or whatever they're called, we would probably need to know how many people are going to be picking up in town, and we would actually calculate. But that's still only like $7 more a year. It's not a lot of money.
Yeah, it's not a revenue stream.
No.
We could, I think we're okay asking once a year for them to give us data.
So we can do that? Because I got a very strong.
We'll just politely, we won't do it by contract.
So we don't, I've never filled out a business license application in the city
It is
of Milwaukee.
exceedingly simple.
No information exchanged.
No.
Very little.
Here's your
address.
It's
We would-
phenomenal.
I think we would wait and see who came in, and we would call them and say, hey, we've decided not to do a program at this time, but we've offered you a business license to be able to function in the city. We'd like to have some data. It's been a request of our council. Would you be willing to share it? Period. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to read it. I'm not saying I'm cutting a contract. I'm not cutting a deal. We would ask them politely to participate and see what they said. And they may decline. But I also know that Portland does accidentally get a lot of our numbers, and we'd probably just call them and say, hey, what did you get?
But they're probably not going to decline because they see us as future users and better substantial contracts in the future. So if we start off, if we do anything at all, if we do, and I'm okay if we don't, if we start off minimally and then see what happens, it's, test the waters. And we can only do what we can only do. And your point was very well taken, concentrate on where we're going to have the biggest bang for the resource buck that we're using, so to speak.
My only concern is if we start out saying, all you have to do is fill out a business license and you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then it turns out somehow to be a problem, or somehow we feel like we need to control it more. Do we get into hot water by going back and saying, we're pulling your business license, even though we pull nobody else's business license?
We wouldn't be pulling
ever?
their business license.
We'd
I don't
have
have
to
the authority.
do an ordinance.
We would do an ordinance, and we would put a program into effect, and we would actually start down that path. And if it makes you feel better when they pull their business license, one of us would have a conversation with them that just says, hey, we're going to do this for a year. We're going to go back to council. We'd like the data. But we don't want to put in restrictions that we can't manage right now, and we'd like to understand how your system works before we do anything. Just so you know, though, this isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's possible that in a year we'll adopt an ordinance. I don't know.
Well, it's possible in 4 months we'll adopt an ordinance.
Absolutely. Well, and it's possible that if this is really bad, if you have a lot of people calling you and complaining, that you'll say, I don't want them operating in this way anymore. And we're willing to move resources around to do it. Once we open it, you are opening a Pandora's box. I'm not going to deny that. Once you start down this path, you are down the path. But I think there are still control mechanisms that you can use in the future if you need to.
So if you gave a business license, I mean, a business license is an annual thing, right?
Yep.
So if at some point you curtailed, or if we, I guess, is it tied to Portland's one-year pilot? Is it just?
Sure.
It's a business license for the rest of 2019? I mean, what is it?
Oh, it's a business license period.
Yeah.
I mean, this is horrible to say. I'm not sure I can't be offering them one right now. I'm not sure that if they had come in, I could have said no.
Yeah.
So this is us simply saying we're going to offer. I don't decline when a bar comes in and says,
right,
I know I've had 18 noise violations, but we want to continue to be in business.
Key difference is we didn't eject them for not having one last season. We didn't say you don't have a business license, pick your scooter up. We didn't make them leave last time because they didn't have a business license, which was a little awkward. So this would be us saying, hey, you're here, register as a business doing business here in Milwaukee.
And we don't license, again, taxis or Uber or Lyft.
Not that I'm aware of.
So it would be the first transportation
Isn't there also
user that we've
some
licensed.
conversation to be had around like the temporary versus transient use of the right-of-way? I mean, we're talking about these two things as if they're the same, and I feel like they're not, because you park a scooter on a sidewalk, and so it's using for at least however long that object is sitting there. That is a different, more permanent use of a right-of-way than a car driving down the street.
All I know is that cities have used that part of the code in order to be able to do enforcement in other major cities. So I'm not saying that you may be very right. I'm not sure how they've calculated that. Justin may have thoughts on it, but
I'm not sure as I sit here. I'll have to give that some thought. I mean, I understand the point you're making, but I don't know how that impacts the analysis of their ability to operate in our right-of-way, whether it's transient or permanent. I don't necessarily know if that impacts.
It's not like the Uber cars leave the right-of-way.
But you gave the example.
Parts of the right-of-way.
You gave the example of them being on the bike lane. I mean, I'm sure they're in the bike lane loading somebody, unloading somebody, but they're not parking in the bike lane. They're not staying in the bike lane. These things could be blocking one of our, intersection ramps for, a day.
there's
overnight.
We haven't talked at all about ADA today.
Yeah.
There is a point where I'm actually very concerned about ADA. So I don't know how that's going to play out as we do this. Users know that they're not supposed to park them dead center in a sidewalk. I'm hoping that their behavior has been tuned enough through other uses in other cities that they will not do that. But that is an issue, just as a side note.
I mean, certainly, if there's 80 scooters deployed across the city and they've got one juicer or two juicers, that's what they call them, juicers?
That's what, yeah, one of them.
One juicer walking around, picking them up and juicing them, and then one person who's trying to redistribute them because they're not operating because of how we've told them we want them to operate. They're operating to make money.
Right.
So they're going to be moving them where their data is telling them where they need to go. But that person, so there's going to be somebody driving around in a van doing that. But, I don't know, maybe the Portland experience can educate us on this. How many times is a scooter been called by a citizen like, hey, this is blocking the handicap parking or the ramp, or it's improperly stored, or somebody's riding it where they shouldn't be riding it? I don't know that.
There's a lot.
A lot.
I mean, I'm sure
a lot of riding
crazy
it where
amounts
they're not supposed to be riding it, for sure.
So the staff report said they'd answered 1,000 calls. Do we know, like, how many of them were that kind of call, like it's blocking a sidewalk or it's blocking a ramp, and they didn't do anything, right?
It's in the report that they had put together. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there is that information's available. We categorized it.
Did Portland, Ann points out, we haven't talked about ADA, and that's a concern that we have. Did Portland talk about that?
They had a lot of focus groups with communities specifically on that topic. I know that was a large contributor to the complaints that Portland received. Portland was also asking for those complaints to come directly to them, though. They placed their number in a larger font on the scooters. So there may have been more complaints that they didn't get, but they had a defined time limit for when the operators were supposed to move their scooters, but that was in their permit. So I don't know how that would work if we had a business license.
What we have talked about is the phone number on there. They need to post, they always post a phone number that says if you're having issues with this device, please call. And that will be where all complaints are directed. We would give those to our customer service reps in the city. If you get a phone call, please direct them to this phone number.
It's not without risk.
No.
At all.
And it gives me heartburn. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Another
we do
thing
lots of
that would
things
be
that are risky.
Another thing that's interesting that I'm personally interested in is that Portland Scooter Pilot operated in the best months of the year for weather.
Right.
Right. So their level of ridership may decrease as we see, more traditional Pacific Northwest weather. So
tradition. I love it.
So you're talking about snow.
About half an inch of it. Yeah. No. But yeah, so I mean, I am curious. It may be that they saw an influx because it was new and because people are wanting to ride them in really good weather. And perhaps this year pilot shows that it's more manageable than we thought. But we won't be able to tell that until their pilot's complete. So.
So are we saying we're okay with the staff recommendation? Is that enough? Did you get direction
The
from?
license concept, just do the business license.
Do you have the direction you need?
I'm voting no on that. I'm okay with the hands-off, let them come, but I'm voting no on the.
And we can vote.
Yeah.
No. We didn't.
Because we were in a
note-
regular meeting.
Except that we didn't notice
We
this
didn't,
for
I was
regular
going to
meeting.
ask
This is
about that. We
picking up
didn't
from work
notice
session,
this as an
actually.
action item.
Yeah.
So I would not think.
I would do, how about a straw poll? Where are we at on having a program that the city offers a business license but does not do anything more than a polite conversation with individuals who pull that license about data sharing and a statement that future councils may choose to create an actual program with limitations?
Sure.
Kind of.
Okay.
If we're going to do anything, yeah.
Do you want to do something?
It's not my highest priority.
Yeah, I want to
Not
do
on my goal
hands-off.
list.
Let them come, but don't keep them out, but don't do a business license.
Counselor Heisey, where are you?
This is a hard one.
Welcome. Thanks. It's been a hard one for us for months.
There's something about it that feels like the timing is just a little off to me, where we're just a few months too early with this conversation, even though I realize this is not the first time this conversation has come up at all.
Do you want, when does the pilot kick off for Portland? Today?
Soon.
I Googled that to see if there was a date, and I couldn't find one. They just said spring.
Yeah.
They said spring 2019.
Okay. So we can assume April, May. That's not really going to change my feeling about that timing. It's more the bigger picture regionally. Not that I expect that Metro is going to suddenly wake up one morning and get out of bed and say, yes, we want to take on scooters. But I don't know. It feels like there's energy moving in a number of municipalities in the region. And maybe there's some potentiality for something that I can't identify yet, and that you all who are having these conversations can't identify yet. So I have that sense. That said, yeah, I can probably be okay with doing the business license approach. Yeah. The fact that downtown, and the fact that the downtown businesses are not upset about it really does influence how I feel about it, because my gut sense is that's where we're going to see the scooters. That's where the greatest concentration of them is. That's where we're going to see any negative impacts. So they're really, how they feel about it is valuable for me to know.
So based on this, we'll go down the path of allowing a business license. One of us will come up with a couple speaking points that if we receive a phone call, we make sure we say in those conversations around receiving data and about preserving our right to be able to create a future program. And we'll go from there. Does that work? I know that is not a unanimous vote, and I know this is actually kind of a lackluster move forward. I get all that. But I do appreciate how much time the three individuals who are sitting here tonight have put into trying to get you to the point where you at least have an option. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good
Thanks,
work,
guys.
you guys. Sorry.
That was awesome. Thank you, Councilor Parks. Okay, so that's all we have on the agenda for tonight. Meeting announcements.
Please join project staff and developers tomorrow evening, Wednesday, March 6th, to learn more about the proposed building plan for the Coho Point at Kellogg Creek site at the intersection of McLaughlin Boulevard and Washington Street. The open house takes place at the Milwaukee Masonic Lodge at Harrison Street and Main Street from 6 to 8 p.m. Join your neighbors at a March Neighborhood District Association meeting to get an update on the Neighborhood Hubs project. Staff will be discussing the proposed locations for these hubs, the size and scale, and how the city can help implement these community goals. The calendar for these meetings is included on the slide, or you can visit the city's online calendar at www.milwaukeeoregon.gov to find out when your NDA meets in March. Learn more about two types of middle housing, including accessory dwelling units or ADUs and cottage clusters, and let us know how they should be incorporated into the city. An open house on the subject will be held Wednesday, April 3rd from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Public Safety Building. Portland General Electric and the city will celebrate the official opening of PGE's Electric Avenue charging stations located in the heart of downtown on Saturday, April 3rd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The event will include demonstrations on how to charge an electric vehicle using the station's free electric vehicle test drives and rides, food carts, and brief remarks from the project partners. More details and a schedule of events to come, so check the city's homepage throughout the month to learn more. Join the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, the city, the Linwood Neighborhood District Association, and hundreds of community members to celebrate the opening of Wichita Park while participating in Earth Day 2019. The event is on Saturday, April 20th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's at Wichita Park and will include a volunteer opportunity in the morning to do outreach in the neighborhood about saving energy, and a park opening celebration that includes the Recmobile activities, live music, food, booths sharing information, family-friendly activities, a ribbon cutting, and brief speeches by project partners. Visit the city's homepage to learn how to register to volunteer. For more information about each of the events mentioned, please visit the city's homepage at www.milwaukeeoregon.gov.
So I had one other thing to add, which is for anyone who's concerned about fireworks and the impact of fireworks on, and I'm talking about illegal fireworks, not the ones that are sold here in Oregon, but the illegal ones that violate our ordinances that are mostly bought in Washington. There's a sort of loose affiliation of citizens who are interested in kind of doing some public outreach, and there's going to be a meeting on Tuesday, March 26th at the Public Safety Building at 6 p.m. So if there's anybody who's interested in helping with outreach on that, we're looking for people to participate.
Before we close the meeting, the city attorney, you know, you guys hire this amazing person who tells me how to stay within the law. He wants to do a little research, making sure that we don't get into trouble with the business license if we do enact something that greatly reduces their financial benefit. So rather than saying we're going to do it tonight, especially since we didn't have a vote tonight, what I'd like to do is take another 2 weeks, put this on to a consent agenda that we're, just some sort of resolution that says that you guys are supportive of this after we've gone through that process to confirm that I'm not getting you into trouble. Deal?
Yep. Okay.
So and that'll be one more piece of paper somebody can point to when we.
Right.
It is.
When we get sued. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we want to keep this agnostic, we can. You guys don't have to take action, actually. We can keep it in work sessions. But I need more information based on his feedback just to make sure we don't get us into trouble. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
You sure?
See, it's so late, I can't think of it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I was going to say, this is an early meeting. Wilda moved.
Always actually.
No, well,
Kathy
I don't think Wilda did.
Kathy moved, I seconded.
You tried.
We shared.
I couldn't get it out.
A joint effort.
I think that might be the first meeting in like a year that Wilda has.
It was moved.
Yes, it was moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.